Hey, how's it going? And welcome to the Guns YouTube channel. It's been a while since I last posted. I've been very busy with work, but I've also not been enjoying the game much in the past few weeks due to awful audio, broken metas, and general issues with the game. As far as I can tell, this seems to be the general sentiment with the community on Twitter, YouTube, and Reddit also. Today's video is a bit of a different one, as I wanted to keep the commentary in this channel quite positive, but this video is a bit of a mini rant about the current state of the game and the illogical decisions being made by the devs. On watching, let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the points I make in the comments below. I have a couple of games running in the background where I've got 18 kills. I've still not managed to get to the 20 bomb yet, but I'm hoping to hit that marker soon. So the Season 2 Reloaded update is coming on 15th of March, and they have stated audio shall be fixed, the shotgun will be nerfed, and the bomb drone will be disabled, which are all positives, but it's so frustrating that it takes them so long to make these changes. I'm hoping these changes make a big step to making this game more enjoyable, as I want to start posting more and experimenting with different guns and providing more commentaries. But if the Season 2 Reloaded update does not meet my expectations, I'm contemplating making the switch to a completely different game, or even going back to Caldera. Now for the rant part of the video. The first point I want to address is the misuse of the term casual. In my mind, a casual player is someone who plays for a few hours a week. I see a lot of posts on social media stating the game has been tailored towards a casual player, which people tend to refer to as players who are generally bad at the game. Just because you have a low KD, you might not be a casual player, and on the other end of the spectrum, you can be a casual player and have a good KD. For example, my Warzone squad, who I am playing with in the background, are below average players, but we used to play every day in Warzone 1, so how can they be referred to as casuals? Their KDs range from 0.5 to 0.8, and they all state Warzone 1 is a superior game to Warzone 2. I know this is a small sample size, but I generally see the same trend on socials that people tend to prefer Warzone 1. Also, when playing with my teammates, I know their limitations and they also know their limitations, and we played as a team to their strengths, and we have a very good win percentage in Warzone 1. So I do not believe this nonsense that lower skilled players or casuals hated Warzone 1 because they couldn't keep up. People who had lower KDs could win games with position and game sense. So it leads me on to the question, why is the game designed the way it is? I believe the devs have diluted the mechanics of Warzone 1 to cater to lower KD players who make up the majority of the player base, and are likely to stay in the game for longer and ultimately ends up buying bundles in the store and trying to keep casual players coming back. Unfortunately, they have completely missed why people like playing Warzone 1 in the first place. Yet again, I'm not trying to speak for the whole community, but I have read enough posts, played the game long enough to come to my own conclusions to why people liked Warzone 1. And when I say Warzone 1, let's keep it simple and state it was pre-Cold War in Verdansk. In my opinion, it was the following main points that appealed to both low and high KD players. Firstly, the simplicity of finding loot and picking loot up, followed by the simplicity of creating a loadout and getting your loadout. Next, good map design with cover and buildings so players who are not skilled were able to control their environment. Lastly, quick movement, which allowed you to move from point to point without feeling like there was a punishment for doing so, and the ability to use movement to outplay opponents and not having to always rotate early. So this is where I don't understand the devs' logic. It seems they have designed a game to cater to low skill players, which is fine. I don't have an issue with that, but then do not go against your design principles with nonsensical game design. For example, finding loot. Why is the UI so complex and cluttered? Why was a backpack added? Why are the buy stations so difficult to navigate? Why do the contracts, such as a recon contract, have an added layer of complexity to them? None of these make sense if you want to cater to casual players to make them keep coming back. The loadout system is overly complex and boring. None of my friends can be bothered to sit through YouTubers' videos and tune their weapons. Before it was simple, me being the sweaty player of the squad would send a screenshot of a loadout to use in our WhatsApp group and they would copy it and we were good to go. Now there seems to be 100 useless attachments that all seem to make your gun worse, and now with the added layer of tuning, yet again, how does that appeal to a low skilled or casual player if a sweat like me can't stand to tune my weapons? How will someone that only plays a few hours a week be able to spend time messing around with tuning and going on Twitter and YouTube to find the best build? Then the guns themselves are so dull, there's no variety in the loadouts at all. Before you had the ability to make speed builds, for example, with quick strafing speed. Now it seems all the attachments do is slow your ADS times and sprint to fire speeds with no individuality at all. Moving on to map design next, I actually think Ashika Island is actually pretty good, but I'm going to focus on Al Mazrah. Yet again, I'm not sure the devs actually know what made the original game fun and exciting. It's like they have no awareness of their community at all. Verdansk was fun because it was a big map, but not overly large, with well spread out POIs, which which is where Caldera ultimately failed, as its POIs were all on the edges of the map. Now, Al Mazrah is huge compared to Verdansk. Couple that with a slow movement speed, it feels like it takes an eternity to get from one spot to the next, only to be beamed by a random person sat in an obscure building. I mean, that does not make for satisfying or fun gameplay, it just leads to frustration and people not wanting to play the game. Whereas Verdansk, even though it had its flaws, it had a mixture of campy areas such as Downtown and Promenade, for example, mixed with hot drop areas such as Superstore and Storage Town, which gave the player the option to start the game fast or play it slower. In addition, the movement speed was much quicker, and you could get from one POI to another POI on foot pretty quickly, which made the game feel so much more fluid and the feeling of building the story in the match. I remember multiple times after a win with my squad, we would be like, that game was pretty insane as we landed downtown, moved through hospital, moved through train station, through airport and won the game at Dam, which gave the feeling of the game having its own journey and deserving the win. The movement and vehicles are so goddamn clunky on Warzone too. It will be a miracle if I actually manage to move through 4 POIs in one game, which makes the game feel incredibly dull, and it never really seems that you create that journey throughout a match in Al Mazrah. Generally, the POIs are fine in Al Mazrah, the map needs condensing down and the base movement speed to be increased. My other complaint is the layout of the buildings. I do not understand why there are so many doors and rooms in a single building. It just further incentivizes people to hide in obscure locations in buildings, and it takes so long to find one camper, yet again making the game feel so slow. Yes, I understand people camped in Verdansk, but the buildings were a lot simpler, and it was generally very easy to figure out where people were in a building and where they were camping. Al Mazrah, the audio is so terrible, you end up clearing a building room by room, which is not fun regardless of any skill level you have. My last point is in terms of movement, which people tend to get up in arms about. It's the lack of fluidity, there's no jump shotting and no sliding. I can't remember a point in time during pre-Cold War Warzone people complaining about ridiculous movement speeds. Even I agree when Stims boosted sprint speeds along with the speed builds of the SMGs and Vanguard, it became a little absurd, and it became a game of who had a stim available rather than who had the better aim. In my opinion, pre-Cold War, the movement was perfect in Warzone. The movement speed was fast, but not absurdly fast, where a lower skill player or a casual player felt they had no chance in a gunfight, and they felt their cameras were being broken all the time. In my opinion, the removal of the ability to have a quick ADS while sliding and jump shotting has put off a lot of players. In a BR, you inherently sometimes get caught off guard, as the map has a lot of buildings, windows and lines of sight at any one point in time. You can't always anticipate a player to be aiming at you from one of these points. The ability to slide and jump shot gave you the chance to put their aim off and either escape or return fire. Or on the flip side, when pushing a player for example, you can slide into rooms where you know someone is pre-aiming. It is so difficult now to challenge corner campers who are pre-aiming, as there is no mechanic to potentially throw their aim off, and it just leads to frustrating deaths where the person who is actively trying to engage a camper dies because there was just a person sat there pre-aiming a door. This is not a tactical or big brain play by this player, and it shouldn't be rewarded. It does not take skill or thought to pre-aim a window or door for the entirety of the match. Yet again, this is where I do not understand the devs' logic. They want people to keep returning to the game and keep playing. I would imagine generally when people do this, they are generally going to get improved at the game and get better. And they will get better at sliding, jumping and aiming amongst other things. I've seen a lot of people improve during the life cycle of Warzone 1. I used to see 1 KD players play closer to a 2 KD, but their stats were tanked from playing lots of games early on and not being able to recover the KD ratio to the ratio they were currently playing at. But taking my friends for example, yes, they are lower KD players, but by the time Verdansk was coming to an end, they felt more confident pushing teams, whereas before they used to play very passively at the start of Warzone. Because Warzone 1 had a skill gap, it made it interesting for players to keep playing and wanting to improve. So if you can't challenge campers due to fear of being killed by a pre-aiming corner camper, the other skill gap in this game, which people say there is positioning, which in my opinion would take you such a short time to master. So where is the progression for a player to see they are getting better at the game, and the reason a player would want to return if they do not feel like they are actively getting better at the game? So I'm coming to the end of the video, and today's video was a bit of a rant as the current state of the game is so frustrating. I understand there will be people out there that enjoy the game, which is great, but it's undeniable that the game is failing, with its falling player base, less views on YouTube, less views on Twitch and streamers quitting the game. It makes no sense what the developers have done. Personally, I believe Warzone 2 will get better, it will not bring back a large proportion of the player base. Sadly, I cannot see all these mistakes being rectified until Warzone 3, or if they completely chalk Warzone 2 and bring back the original Warzone with DLC bundles, which ironically probably make them more money than they are making now. They need to learn lessons and engage with their community. The game should be developed to make it balanced and a fair game, not a game that is completely tailored to low skilled or high skilled players, but it has a skill gap so players feel there is something to strive for and to improve at. I do think Season 2 Reloaded will put the game in a better state, and I am going to try to enjoy the game for what it is, as there is a whole host of other issues which I have not mentioned in this video, such as TTK. I feel Call of Duty are very lucky right now that there's not another shooter game which is based in the current era, which is well developed and well polished with a good BR mode, as I personally think this is the only reason it is somewhat retaining a player base. I just want you to imagine if Fortnite had come out in the last month, would Warzone 2 have a player base right now? It probably would not. Okay, so that brings me to the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed listening to me somewhat rant and make a few points. Let me know if you agreed or disagreed with any of the points I made below in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.